Hello everyone and welcome back to Oxygen Not Included, where in the last episode we set up our little Draco ranch down here. Now it isn't in its complete state. We need a bit more hydrogen in here for me to be completely comfortable with what we've got, but it is working. We've also got a little incubator, so in a few more cycles we're going to get another baby Draco to replace the one that tragically decided not to eat until it died. It was its own decision. I had no part in this. I refuse to accept responsibility. Now, in today's episode, what I would like to work on is, well, it's also going to help the Draco Ranch. We're going to be setting up a electrolyzer setup to provide a more permanent source of oxygen for our base, which will also provide some waste hydrogen that we can pump in here. Additionally, I think it would probably be a good idea to work on a hatch ranch, a hatch ranch, my lord, to try and supplement our coal supply. That would be quite cool. But I noticed we've got a skill. Let's go ahead and have a look at, oh, pretty much everyone has got a skill. Well, that's quite nice to see. I'm not going to lie. Pretty happy with this one. Zangiri. I could give you tidying. This will give you a little bit of extra strength and also allow you to empty pipes. Or I could look, well, I mean, you would enjoy it, so sure, you can have that. That's fine. Amira, you two can have tidying as well. That strength isn't going to go amiss, and it is giving you a bit of a bonus in that it is a loved job. Unspeakable. You do like art. And we're getting to the point where I'm starting to think that getting art would be wise. Data, I'm going to give you super hard digging though. So let's get you the super hard digging hat. There you go. Obsidian Mist. You're pretty focused right now in what we've got you working on. I'm not sure we strictly need to give you anything else. And maybe I should hold off until perhaps I need that. But right now you're very focused on basically hauling. Perhaps I could give you a little bit of operation. That would help train up your athletics. Sure, we'll get you a little bit of operation as well. Now, Travis, you want to be a doctor. Ever so much. And it saddens me greatly not to give you what you want, but I would rather you get some extra strength right now. As for Unspeakable, I'm going to go for critter ranching so that you can supplement Amira's work at the ranch. It's becoming a more and more important part of our colony, I feel. But we need to get more water in here before we can even think about doing electrolysis, using an electrolyzer to split apart the hydrogen and oxygen out of water. We need to get more water. So with that in mind, let's have a look. We have got a little area down here, and I think it would be wise for us to try and access these resources sooner rather than later. I would also like to generally expand out a bit more in search of new and interesting things to find. Now, there's loads of hydrogen up there that we can access, loads of coal up there as well as a mob, and then there's plenty of water over here. Perhaps a little bit too much, a scary amount of water, actually. We will go ahead and climb all the way up there, I think, and then dig across. And down in through here. Well, no, we'll probably go down here since it makes the most sense to enter the pool from the lowest point. At that point, we'll dig down just a little bit more, just to make sure that all of the water should funnel down to here eventually. Then we'll lead all of this out via piping. We've got a bunch of hatches down here eating the precious copper, pooping out coal. I want coal, but I also want copper. Also, pips keep going into my storage bins and letting everything out. So, to that end, I'm going to place down a little area where I can just stick all of the critters which I don't want anywhere else. And that's going to be in here, where we also get the eggs that I don't want anywhere else. I actually want this built really quite quickly. We haven't even begun work up here, but we're making reasonable progress down here, actually. We have finished excavating this area. I've given them an order to sweep it because I don't want to seal off this reservoir until everything that's on the floor is out of there. It will drive me nuts otherwise. I maybe should make a ladder down here, but that's just going to encourage people to drop things in there, in my opinion. That being said, how did all of these things get in there? I think it's people dropping stuff whilst they're walking along here. I'm not entirely sure about this. It's frustrating. Yeah, there's mealwood seeds down there. That said, I did deliver water into this area. Well, maybe not. We'll see. But now that this is set up, I pretty much want all critters, but as a priority one. This should be the place where any critter is taken only, and I really do mean only, if there's nowhere else to take them. So, with that done, time to wrangle you. There we go. I want it to be a reasonably high priority. You as well, please. Wrangle at 7. You as well. Let's get you somewhere safe. Also, where you're not going to cause me annoyance. It's mostly where you're not going to cause me annoyance, because right now you've got perfect access up there. I could allow you to stay, maybe. Alright. Alright, I'm going to cancel the wrangle on you. You can continue planting things around here. The babbies? No. Oh, actually, you've left. Oh, if only. If only I could seal this off before you got back in there. But the odds of me doing that, fairly slim. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the reservoir is finally clean. My lord, that took a while, and I did, in the end, have to set up a bunch of new storage bins, though. A bit overkill, I suppose. But we have completely filled up these ones over here. We have also finished our research. Well done, Zangiri. We now have the SR latch, which is going to be a huge help to us in the future. Now, in our expansion, this is often how it goes, as we're exploring out to get access to some other resource, we have discovered something marvelous. A dormant natural gas geyser. I do need to analyze this to see how good of a natural gas geyser it is, but that will probably open up quite a few other options for us. In the immediate term, it will open up, where are we? The natural gas generator as a power option. But we have finished the work that we really needed to do. Now, the last thing about here, we need a way of getting this good water out. Now, you don't strictly need to use potable water for the electrolyzer, and in fact, because of that, you probably shouldn't unless you have to. But with that in mind, we are going to go ahead, we're going to use a mesh tile down here to have a little pump that can take water out of here, but only down to this level, leaving just a little bit at the bottom. Now, we are always going to have more at the bottom of this than needed. Now, that's basically going to be wasted water, and I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with that. I don't necessarily want the pump to be at this lowest level, because then it would be able to drain everything out of here. I'm still undecided on that. We could build the pump at the lowest level just to make use of the water down here, with a view that we will always, hopefully, be bringing new water in. That's a bit of a question mark there. I think for the time being, and until I have a different reason, we'll just go with a pump that is a safe distance up from the bottom. Now, this does mean there's going to be a while before this pump has any access to potable water, but again, that's okay. Generally speaking, I don't really want this pump to be the default pump that is bringing quote-unquote clean water to anything, because most of the things that we can use clean water for, such as electrolyzers, it doesn't actually matter if they are, if it is non-germy water. I'm going to have a look for where we're going to set up our electrolyzer. Now, if it was somewhere cold, that would be ideal. We have somewhere cold over here. There's algae, polluted ice. Ooh, that is actually a cold biome. That's quite far away. Still, we could get over there. Now, the advantage with building it in a cold biome is that the oxygen will come pre-cooled. Well, I mean, it's going to come out of the electrolyzer hot, hot-ish. But then we can allow it to bleed off some of that heat whilst traveling through the cold biome before it gets to the base. So it'll help out the base in a little way. This is getting very dense down here. Not super happy about that. Maybe we should build a carbon skimmer over there as well. That is definitely something we could look into doing. Alternatively, I could pump the carbon dioxide down here if I really want to get rid of it down there, rather than have to build two of them. Honestly, having more and more of these like isolated systems is a little bit tiresome, but you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Our baby Draco is here! Oh, this is marvelous! And it's left this little eggshell there. Look! Look at it! Our first baby. It's a tiny baby. The critter will grow into an adult as it ages and becomes wise to the ways of the world. Oh, critter metabolism minus 90%, but happiness plus 5. Oh, that's lovely. And it is born tame, which is rather awesome as well. So there we go. You can hang out in here. That is our first domestic-born Draco. This is a grand moment for the colony, truly. Also, we've got other things that we could research as well, as we probably should. With that in mind, now that we know that we've got a natural gas geyser, it may be wise to go for the natural gas generator straight away, really. I see no reason not to, and then after that, we can go for the gas range, which does actually run on natural gas and is the best place to cook food. Once we get that, we're probably not going to need the basic micro musher at that point. We can probably just get rid of that. Now, I don't know how big the gas range is. It's probably gigantic. How did it? I hate that this floor can have things drop through it. I hate it with such a passion. Well, my perfectly clean reservoir without any way in or out is now not perfectly clean. That hurts. Well, there's nothing for it but to build a bloody ladder down here. After all that work, just built a ladder there to begin with. Oh well. But as you can see over here, I have moved all of our food storage down into 2 smaller storages, which will have gas flow tiles. Eventually, we've got room for expansion as well if we want. And as you can see, our first pump is indeed pumping liquid over here. That pains me so much. I was trying so hard to keep this as a place where no one needed to get in, and so no one could. But alas, here we are. Oh well, I guess there are worse things that could happen. Not many, but I suppose they are if I imagine really hard. There we go. Let's get that all cleaned out. Now, that does mean, along with our research, that we also have place to store some refrigerators. Now, we could store quite a few refrigerators, and that's useful because refrigerators don't store very much. They only have a storage of 100 kilograms, whereas this has storage of capacity of 150. So we may end up wanting a lot of them, because ultimately I don't really want to be storing ingredients for food. I want to be storing the food itself. So we're going to start off with, well, let's go for 2. Ultimately, I can have them stored up in all sorts of other ways. Actually, if we put only the refrigerators on one side and then the logic on the other, it may be a little bit more pleasing to look at the very least. Right, so whilst those are being built, now refrigerators, when they are full, send a green signal. I want to somehow tie these into my food-producing buildings such that when a green signal is received, they turn on. And that should mean that the refrigerator has room. But obviously, we need to reverse it. Now, that's easy enough done with a NOT gate. But if you've got 2 buildings that can send a green signal will override a red signal. So that would mean that whilst one might be partially full, so there's room for more food, and the other one gets filled, it will send a green signal overriding the red signal, and thus going through a NOT gate, turning into a red signal and shutting down our food producers. I only want them to shut off when there is no more room, so that is all refrigerators are full. So that's what we're going to use an AND gate for. Technically speaking, effectively, if you're looking for the green signal, that is an OR gate. If any of them are green, then the whole signal is green. But we want an AND gate. Now, this is going to need an input signal from 2 devices, like so, and will output 1 signal. So if both of them are green, it will output green. Otherwise, it outputs red. We do want to pass this through a NOT gate, and then finally, that NOT gate up again and into both of our cooking stations. Now, currently, until a lot of people have been working in here and breathing a lot and all that CO2 is nice and captured in here, these are not going to be in a sterile environment, so we do need to deal with that. So let's go ahead and pull those up like so. Once they are powered, then they'll actually be refrigerating the food, which will be grand. Now then, you've got a little bit of work to do, but I'm very, very happy to be there. We just need this last pump hooked up, and then this reservoir will start filling properly. Oh, I'm so frustrated, though. Okay, the automation is on. And if we actually check out these buildings, we should see that they are currently enabled by the automation grid. And that is because we're currently receiving 2 negative signals. That's outputting a negative signal. That is getting turned into a green signal, meaning that the refrigerators need to be filled with something. Now, what somethings are we going to be putting in there? Well, we are only going to be putting in the finished goods. I don't want duplicants to have to go all the way down here to get their food. I want them to just step there, grab something nice. So barbecue, gristleberry. Not that gristleberry is particularly nice, but it is an end product, I suppose. A lice loaf. We will put in the mush fry, not the mush bar, because I consider that an ingredient. Nutrient bar, I suppose, and pickled meal and spicy tofu. I want these to be a higher priority than these, which are currently 7. Now, they will accept everything. I'm not going to change that. What I would like, well, right now I'm going to just dump that out. But what I would ultimately like is if there is no room up here, they will put it down there. I can't force them to take it back out of there later on, which is a bit of a pain, but it's something that we can live with. I'll just go ahead and get that swept up right away. Now, I have gone through consumables, and I have removed the basic foodstuffs. I don't want these being eaten. Bristleberries? No, I want the gristleberry, the cooked version. And no, I don't want you eating mushrooms either. All of the ingredients should instead be being delivered. Should be the only things being eaten, and they should be being delivered over there. Now, I'm going to have to wait for someone to pop by for that. Oh, look! Baby shine nymphs. Or rather, shine nymphs. They are baby shine bugs. Right, we've also got a duplicate skill and a blueprint. Let's have a look at the skills right now. Travis, well done you. You can get plumbing, so you're a little bit stronger. There you go. Obsidian mist. Well, at this point, I'll give you electrical engineering. This will also lead to mechatronics engineering, which in turn will allow you to build the conveyor rail, an automated carrier. You're going to do yourself out of a job, basically, just like real life. That was a little bit too real. Now I'm sad. Would someone please, pretty please. There we go. We're delivering the resources, and hopefully someone can then do the building. Detour? No. Maybe Travis? Travis, are you going to do the building? Travis is going to do the building. You hero. Hero of the colony, Travis. Well done. And there we go. We have finally got the second pump up and running. So at this point, I consider the reservoir project, which was kind of the minor goal. This was the sub-project to get in the electrolyzer up and running complete. And it's only taken us a couple of cycles to do it. I care far too much about things being tidy, don't I? I started off so well. I was resisting so hard. The moment I started building all of these bloody storages... What on earth? Well, actually, the more... no. If you think about it, putting a vending machine in a frozen biome is probably not that dumb. Because then you have to spend less refrigerating any perishable goods that are inside the vending machine. You geniuses. But there we go. We've got some Wheezewort. We've even got some sleet wheat, which is going to be important. That's quite a nice food to grow if you can. They're kind of difficult, though, because they need, I believe they need water. But they've got a very, very sensitive temperature tolerance. Unfortunately, most of the temperature tolerance is below the temperature that you can pump water into them without the water freezing in the pipes. So they're awkward to maintain, to say the very, very least. Now, we are currently expanding out a little area back here. This is where I'm going to set up our electrolyzers. Initially, we're probably going to be moving around most of this stuff over time as we get the opportunity to, just to improve the base, generally speaking. But for the time being, we're also clearing up this mess because there's so much of it, unfortunately. This is a little bit too deep for us to work on, which is a pain, because that does mean that our duplicants have to get through there. Can they do it now? No, unfortunately not. I'm going to have to thin that out a little bit. What I can do in the meanwhile, though, is just plonk down a single tile so they can just hop over that little area without having to walk through polluted water constantly, because that's a bit grim. We've got some salt water over there. Ooh, we've got some waterweed. That is very interesting. We've got too wet. Lots of waterweed up there, it seems. But I think it is high time that we find out just what lies in here. Now, if we're careful and we only expose a tiny bit of this to the outside, we'll be able to work out what's in there without having to expose it enough that it can actually start to unleash whatever it is. If it's a geyser, I would really, really like a steam geyser, for example. That would be fantastic. I'm not sure. There are different ways of working out. I think they're all only 4 wide. There are very glitchy ways of working it out as well. In that if you go into the priority menu, there is a priority there. If you give it the top priority and it becomes like a yellow alert, I believe by some mechanic you can work out what it is, because it'll give you a warning alert that until this is done, it's going to be red alert, that sort of thing, and it'll tell you what it is at that point. But I don't really like using glitches for these sorts of things, or in general, to be perfectly honest. What have we got? Nothing there yet. Okay, well, let's sneak in a little bit closer. Now, I've laid out this little area here in preparation, because we are going to want a hydrogen generator over here. Unless this is an amazing vent or volcano or geyser, whatever it's going to be, then I'm probably not going to be moving my power setup right now. But it is every possibility it will be. Let's have a look. Is this going to tell us what we need to know? If it is not, then I want to dig away more. Nope, still don't know. Okay. I'm being very, very cautious. Oh, no, wait. Leaky oil fissure. Okay. So it emits crude oil. That will be useful later, but not right now. Not for me right now, at least. So, no, we're probably going to leave that one there, then. Now, the way that we're going to be doing this, we are going to want an electrolyzer. Now, an electrolyzer takes 1,000 grams, or 1 kilo, or if it's at like room temperature and it's just regular water without nothing else in there, about a liter of water per second, and 120 watts to operate. It will take this from a liquid pipe, so you don't deliver it manually. For that 1,000 grams of water, it will produce 888 grams of oxygen and 112 grams of hydrogen. It'll also produce a bit of heat. The water will come out at a temperature, I think it's a reasonably warm temperature. It's not that, like, you know, dangerously hot, but it's quite warm. Sorry, the oxygen. And the hotter the water that goes into it, the hotter the products that will come out as well. This is not something that you can use to get rid of heat. Now, given the weight of gas that it's going to produce, it will produce enough oxygen. Well, in total, it'll produce enough gas to use up 2 pumps in their entirety, I believe. You have a look at gas pumps. They can move 500 grams a second. Now, the problem is they're not equal. So what you could do is you could put down 2 pumps, so you would be completely consuming all of the output of a single electrolyzer. And for that, you would need a vent then, a gas filter, which you would also need to power to get to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. Because if you pump anything but hydrogen into a hydrogen generator, you will cause it damage. And we do want to pump the hydrogen into the generator so that it can power, if nothing else, the electrolyzer themselves. It's what's known as a self-powering electrolyzer. A self-powering oxygen maker. I think the acronym is SPOM, which is just very silly, but kind of in an endearing way, in my opinion. Let's continue to dig this out. Now, initially, I am just going to build this only hooked up to the electrolyzer, the hydrogen generator, after just a little kickstart of manual energy just to get the system running, just to show that it works. But once that's done, I'm going to hook the hydrogen generator up into the main network, and I'm going to have it running off the main network. Once we know that the hydrogen generator is enough to power itself, then I'm just going to hook everything else up, rather than have the hydrogen generator only operate this. Now, with that said, if you do it that way, then you can create a backlog of hydrogen fairly easily. If you don't, if you're running the hydrogen into the rest of the base, then you're going to burn through that hydrogen fairly quickly. And that's just the way that's going to go, especially if you're using the hydrogen generator as the priority. We could use the coal generator as the priority and only turn the hydrogen generator on when there is an absolute need. but that's debatable whether that would be the most efficient since we're basically making the hydrogen, whereas we're not making the coal yet. On that note, probably time for me to start thinking about setting up a hatch refinery. And we've got a new colony achievement. Let's go and check out what this one is. We have got turn of the century, reach cycle 100 with at least one living duplicate. Well, that wasn't too hard for us, honestly. I imagine many of the people who are very comfortable playing this game are just rolling their eyes that we've only gotten this much done in 100 cycles. But shush, I'm enjoying myself. Right, now, with access to this biome, we've got some wolframite, very important ore there. It's a source of tungsten and is suitable for building power systems. It has some very, very nice properties that will be ideal for us later on, but it's right now not something that we actively need to worry about too much. We will dig through here and go and harvest these weeswarts. We're not going to take them out of here just yet. We're also going to grab the ice. I generally only want to grab the regular ice, not polluted ice. Now that polluted ice is visible, can I tell you not to store it? No. That's super worrying, actually. As you can see, I have excavated this whole area and we've now moved pretty much all of that down. I'm going to be wiping all of this up off the floor in a moment, and I am starting work on the hatchery as well, which is going to be rather marvelous. Now we've got much of the area cleaned up here as we need, and I think it's time for us to start looking to place down some insulation, because this is going to be a hot system, and I'm not exactly sure how much we're going to lay down yet. So let's have a think. In terms of the electrolyzer, as I mentioned, this produces two types of gas: oxygen and hydrogen. Now, you could use a gas vent to try and filter that out. That has pros and cons. One very big con is it uses power. So if you're trying to make a self-powering system, that's an extra thing you've got to try and power off the hydrogen that's being produced. Furthermore, it can cause backups. If the pipe that it's trying to output the filtered material to can't accept it, then it just stops. It doesn't output anymore. So that can cause a backup in the system. What I'm going to want to do instead is use the game's mechanics to filter out the hydrogen. Specifically, I want to use the fact that two gases can't occupy the same tile at the same time to make a system whereby the only possible gas in an area is hydrogen, and thus I don't need to worry about filtering it, and the only possible gas elsewhere is oxygen, and again, I don't need to filter it. And in fact, if a tiny bit of hydrogen got into the oxygen supply, it wouldn't be that much of a problem. It would just float up to the top of the base eventually. In fact, putting some sort of pump over here to just supplement the hydrogen would be actually cool. But the sort of self-powering oxygen maker that I'm going to be building will run hydrogen positive, so it's not really going to be necessary. Now, with that in mind, with the fact that we're producing quite a lot more oxygen than hydrogen, two electrolyzers will, in fact more than two electrolyzers, will produce enough hydrogen for one pump to pull out. One pump won't be oversaturated with hydrogen. However, when it comes to oxygen, two of them are going to be producing a little bit over 1,600, which technically means that to get all of that oxygen out, I would need 4 pumps, and I'd have a bit of wasted room there. But I would prefer to go with 3, and every now and then just have a little bit of downtime while the pumps are having to pull something out. So we're going to need room for 3 gas pumps, and these are going to be at the bottom because hydrogen rises, oxygen drops. So let's have a look for our ventilation. Now, where are we? We've got 3 oxygen pumps. Now, if we assume that that is the very edge, I'll bring it in a little bit, have the 3 pumps around here. Now, that gives me room for 1 gas pump there, and some electrolyzers on the side. Now, generally speaking, I like to leave room around my electrolyzers because of the way that an electrolyzer will output its gas. It'll always output the gas in the top left, and it'll output to the cardinal directions and the tile in the middle. Hydrogen will usually be somewhere in the top of that configuration, but the fact that it does sometimes output on this side means that I don't like blocking it, because it forces the gas to be output elsewhere. So with that in mind, we're going to make this a fairly wide system. It's not going to be space efficient in any way. understand that's just the way that this one's going to be, unfortunately. Okay, although it isn't quite finished yet, I have decided that I'm going to move the hatches down here because they were so unhappy up here, even wild as they are. They're overcrowded, glum, and cramped, and I just couldn't bear seeing them like that anymore. So we're moving them down here, and I guess we're going to be getting up a little ranch a little bit faster than I was expecting to. Now, we're going to need a critter feeder for my hatches, and we'll pop this critter feeder just about here. Pop that back down because I wanted them to be moved out as soon as possible. There we go. And further to that, we are also going to want a grooming station. We only need a grooming station down here, though. We don't need anything, any other consideration, because you don't shear hatches. You just pet them and love them, and eventually they poop out coal, and you collect their poop. Right. They're basically like horses, but you can't ride them. Alright, let's get the last little bits done over here. There we go. Get that popped in place. All of the wiring has been done. And eventually, once this is all done, I'm going to be sealing off this area. Now, with that in mind, it is quite possible that I'm going to need to actively cool this area down eventually. And once that becomes a necessity, we'll look at ways that we can do that, because most of the things in here will overheat and actually take damage at 75 degrees, and you know we're going to be operating around there. Now, to explain the system, whilst I'm waiting for people to sweep all of this stuff up that I really want done right now, please and thank you. The oxygen will move down, hydrogen will move up, just because of their relative weights. Once the oxygen is down here, we're going to have atmos sensors at various locations that will detect when the pressure of the oxygen is above a certain amount and will activate the relevant gas pump. Now, the sensors themselves, you could operate this on a single sensor, which would be fine, and turn all three of these on whenever the pressure down here is particularly high and there's a lot of oxygen weight there. Or you can just turn on the sensors as and when you want. If you were building this in a way that wasn't meant to look nice, which is the only reason why I've got it set up like this, then you'd have things a lot more condensed, and you might run with less pumps, more pumps, it depends. All of these pumps and all of the electrolyzers running simultaneously would massively overload a single wire circuit. That's why I've got two transformers, and everything at the top of the room is running on one, and everything at the bottom is running on the other. We will see if this many pumps and the two electrolyzers will operate okay with the hydrogen generator. Previously, when I build this, I rarely go more than 3 pumps. Quite often, I'll only have 2, and I'll just accept that sometimes the electrolyzers, they're not going to be running 24/7 because they're going to be overpressurized. I typically give priority to the hydrogen because I don't need that aggressive of a production of oxygen. I rarely have very high duplicate bases. This may be different though. So we've built this in such a way that it could conceivably run most of the time. It will occasionally get overpressurized, but just for a moment as the oxygen is getting pumped out. But right now, the whole room is capable of being isolated. Now you'll notice I've got the gas vents over here. If we go to the gas overlay, initially I'm going to run the system to completely pump out all gas in this room. I don't want anything but a vacuum there before we start pumping water in. That way we can ensure that we're not going to have a situation where I'm accidentally pumping out some polluted oxygen or anything like that. I want to be able to be absolutely certain that the weights of the gases are going to be as I expect them to be. Now, we're going to have to wait for this place to be cleaned up because it's me, and I warned you about tempting me to build storages everywhere. Oh my lord. But as you can see down here, we actually now have enough water in here that they can reach it from this pitch pump, and the liquid pump will be active once we're ready for it to be. Now, since I want, generally speaking, to be running this off polluted water where I can, that being said, I'd actually like this to be its own loop, so that I'm only adding a bit of polluted water down here if there's an accident somehow, and we've depleted the water in there. So this will always be able to take care of any CO2. So I'm probably going to set up the plumbing here, so that this is delivering directly over here, and this is only adding in as necessary. Well done, Amira. Let's get those massive chompers brushed. I can only assume that dental hygiene is incredibly important to a hatch. There we go. And some pets for good luck. There we are. Fantastic. Are you guys a little happy? I hope you are. Yes, they are happy. They are groomed. How many do we want to allow in here? Not many. 8 at most, I would say. And then after that, we'll auto-wrangle and deliver the rest elsewhere. Same in here, realistically. We need to get... if we have too many, they should be taken out of this area. Now, with that being said, this is already running close to its capacity. And yet, I need this to have its own network. Honestly, for 4 incubators, we're going to have this running on its own loop. Okay, we've got more hatches to move down to the hatchery. Well, actually, no, the hatch stable. I mean, the hatchery will be built soon enough. Oh, no. No one is moving you. Damn it, I wish that was also considered part of the wrangling skill. Why would I ask you just to wrangle something and then leave it there? Hopeless and alone. Scallywags that you are. But we do have skill points to spend. And then also something to print. Now, day to war. We're going to be getting you super hard digging. So you finally get the super duper hard digging hat. Rather, super duper hard digging I'm going to get. Now, you know what? Maybe I should go for the art. Maybe it's time. I'd prefer someone who was just an artist, though. Yeah, because right now I prefer everyone who's around who could do carrying to do carrying when they haven't got anything else to do. So, yeah, we're going with carrying for everyone who doesn't already have it, I'm afraid. There's so much to move. All the time, so much to move. Alright, and choose a blueprint. Oh, we can get some fertilizer. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's also completely surplus to demand. That being said, eventually we will be using it, so sure, we'll print that. It's fine. It's fine. There we go. That is actually looking quite nice down there. Unfortunately, the CO2 is starting to build up. I may need to pump that out whenever it detects that there's a layer of CO2 in there. Maybe pump that somewhere quite different. In fact, I could possibly even have a little tile there, maybe. We'll see. Food-wise, we're doing okay at the moment. We've just got a lot of jobs for my duplicates to do, and they're nowhere nearer to getting all of this cleared out yet. Well, mind you, part of that is they're shifting ridiculous amounts of igneous rock around. Huh. That was silly of me. Okay, it seems that we have managed to work out the exact amount of critters that we need to prevent in this room. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and technically they're still saying overcrowded. That's interesting, because they weren't saying that a moment ago. It might be that this room can only support 4. That would be pretty rubbish. Oh no, sorry, we've got 7 in here right now. Yes. I'm telling them to only keep 6, and if it goes above that, to auto-wrangle. So hopefully that will help. I am also going to remove this one over here. Let's get that out of the way right now. And finally, once this one is built, I'm going to have a location where anything else can go. Because I don't want them to just die. Because if we leave them in there, they're eventually just going to perish. They're not going to reproduce. As I mentioned, with all things being equal, as long as they're not massively unhappy, they will lay 1 egg before they die. Always. So their population will remain steady. If, however, as is the case here, they're overpopulated, they're glum, they're just generally unhappy in there, they're not going to reproduce before they die. So anything that I can't store, I would like to just put out here in this massive area where they should at the very least not be overcrowded. So, you know, we'll control one of the problems. This should now have shut down the incubator over there. As a result of it being there not being less than 6 critters in here, and hopefully we'll just take you out. 2 less than normal. I mean, that's not terrible. I could perhaps expand this out all the way over there and have a full 8-strong hatchery. That might not be a bad idea, frankly. That might not be a bad idea. I don't think I'm going to need that much room though. Let's see how big this room is. It's currently 70 tiles, and a stable can be up to 96 tiles. So yes, we certainly wouldn't need that much room. But we could perhaps push it over a little bit. Maybe even turn this into an airlock of some sort. That might not be a bad idea, all things said and done. We are currently storing 2,000 kilograms of sandstone to feed all of our hatches in there. So that should keep them fairly happy. And over here, we are finally done. We've got everything out of the way, or at least almost. We now need the final touches, which is going to be one more airflow tile over there. We are also going to want 2 more of these. Now I'm going to build this one first and then that one. Now, previously I mentioned you never really want a single tile, because a single tile will only allow one type of gas to occupy that space, and as such, gas moving through a single tile is kind of slow, unless the gas trying to move through it is the same kind of gas that's already there. So we're going to make a hydrogen choke point that should, by its very nature, filter out all hydrogen, or rather prevent any oxygen from getting past. The hydrogen should happily sit at the very top of the room, and once it's there, no oxygen is going to be able to displace it. Certainly no oxygen is going to be able to push through here if this little area is full of hydrogen. And that is what we want ultimately. Wow, the CO2 over here is kind of scary bad. Right, you may notice already down here that we've removed the water sieve. If you have a look, you can probably already tell from what we've been doing elsewhere how I intend to solve this problem. Polluted water goes on one side, clean water comes out on the other. So, oh, we don't need this to be priority now. No, no, no. There we go. Clean water down, this all the way up. And once again, if there's any polluted water in this pipe, then we're not going to top it up with any more polluted water from the pump there. And that's why I wanted this bridge to be literally the tile before it goes into the sieve. This is going to maximize minimize the amount of extra polluted water that this will dump in, because there's very, very slight buffer there. So any kind of polluted water coming out of here, if it hasn't got anywhere to go, it's going to block any more entering from this pump. So that will hopefully keep things going okay. And there we go. Automatically wrangled. Right, this one down here. Go ahead, put 20 in there. It's priority 1. Right, there we go. That side has been done. Let's get this side as well. And once that is all done, it'll be time for us to empty out this room. We'll seal her off completely and empty it out. Now, there is one thing I could add in here to prevent future problems, and that is a little water loop that's not doing anything, but it would eventually become a cooling loop. I'm not going to do that in this instance. Should that become a necessity, and it probably will eventually, but we can deal with it then. I would like to deal with the heat in a kind of a distinct episode where I'm dealing with the heat, rather than kind of laying down lots of the groundwork in piecemeal across many, many episodes, and then eventually coming back to deal with it. I think it would make for a bit more of a kind of focused episode then, where we're dealing with heat specifically. Alright, final part of this is we need to hook it up to power, and also we need to get rid of this little bit over there, which doesn't need to be there. Let's just do that quickly so that this can all be clean again, and we should be good to go. We should already see that there is some polluted water in there. Yes, that is marvelous. And in fact, some of it came straight out of the carbon skimmer, so that seems to have done its job. Perfect. I approve enormously. Enormous levels of approval. Very, very happy with that. Right, so now we're just waiting for the last little bits, though it looks like we may have duplicate skills. So no, you're lying to me once again. But we do have a blueprint that we can print. Copper ore care package. Oh, fungal spores. Sure, I'll take them. We'll eventually have an area to grow them, especially considering how much carbon dioxide we've got over here. My lord, if we could just channel that into a place, we could have mushrooms for days. And the system is ready, or at least it is ready to start pumping out the waste gases in here. Now, for this one to work, I want to give it a constant signal. So if it's above 1 gram, or above 0 actually, would be a better one, then I want this to activate. And we'll copy that down to all of them down there, so they are always all active. Now, this is going to be horrible work for Travis, because you're doing it in chlorine. Yeah, that's not exactly going to be a nice time for you now, is it? But this should slowly pull out the gas from this room. If we go over to materials and turn on gas, we'll see what's in there. Polluted oxygen, a tiny bit of hydrogen, but mostly polluted oxygen and oxygen in there right now. So we're going to slowly empty this area out. I guess for the time being, actually, We could hook it up to the main junction if I really wanted to. That might be a lot easier, because this is going to take a while. And poor Travis, I feel horrible about asking you to do, because that's a lot of air you need to move. And there we go, a pure vacuum. Perfect. Right, now with that in place, I need to disconnect the system and get the water back up here. Okay, everything is ready. Now, what I've done is I've disconnected the power grid. As you can see, this is only its own power grid. However, I have kept the battery basically fully charged, just so that we've got an initial charge to get the thing running. We do need an initial charge. You do need to kickstart the system. Now, it's completely vacuumed in there. There's nothing in there to be swept. Oh, thank goodness. The hydrogen generator is set up. We have got the gas pipes set up, as you can see. With hydrogen, we'll go down to the hydrogen generator. The oxygen is just going to be vented here. Honestly, I feel like just in case we need this to run again, I should probably put a little bit of oxygen there. It's the very least that they deserve. I have got the water set up. That includes the pump from the main reservoir. That is potable water, so we don't really want to use that if we don't have to. And we've also got some water coming up here. Now, eventually what I might do is I'll put a bridge there, much as we've got down here, and then run that off any other polluted water pumps that we could find, just so that we're not draining this quite as aggressively, but we are probably going to drain it fairly aggressively to begin with. Now, to begin, we are only going to hook up the water from the polluted water pipes. So all we need to do now is, since I've already prepped this, just connect that there, boom, and we should see this starting to output water into the pipes as we go. There we are. Marvelous. Now I'll speed that up just a little bit so we can see this in action. We are losing charge right now because this is just burning off a little bit of its charge as usual. The water is making its way up, and as soon as it hits in here, the electrolyzers should engage. And if all goes to plan, I sincerely hope it does. There we go. We're seeing a little bit of gas there. Hydrogen starting to build up. Now, all of the atmo sensors are currently set to only activate if there's over 1 kilo of pressure. I'm not actually sure how you weigh gas pressure. 1 kilo of pressure sounds wrong, but at the same time, I guess everyone understands what I mean by it. These are activating because the pressure down here is high enough, so we've got all 3 oxygen pumps active, and they're pulling out some of the oxygen, and that is being fed down here. There's no hydrogen whatsoever, and that's making this little area nice and pretty. Now, we've run out of power completely. That is a bit of a shame. Now, this one could activate, but we will have this one go ahead and get a little bit more power into the system, just enough to get the hydrogen over here. How much hydrogen is there? Only 600 grams, but you can see there's only hydrogen in this little area here. It has created a gas lock, if you like, for those who are familiar with the idea of liquid locks to create impromptu seals for doors. That's effectively what this is. This is a gas lock. Now, the main thing that we want to ensure is that when this thing triggers, this doesn't have long enough to pull away the gas that is effectively sealing the lock right now. We're getting there, but we need a little bit more. Once the system is properly primed, we should see it become self-powering, self-sustaining for all intents and purposes. We've got a little bit of oxygen down here, thank goodness. Let's actually have a look. Tiny bit of oxygen. Enjoy, enjoy. I'm such a giving overlord. Truly I am. Too good for you, really. Right, this should activate once this is above 1,000 grams. There we go. This is active. Starting to pump out some chunky bits of hydrogen. It won't pump out any more. It'll only activate when there's a good bit of hydrogen to vent into the system. At this point, I am going to disable the building. You hop off for now. And we'll see if this can kickstart the whole system or not. That's a decent bit of hydrogen in there, so this should be able to run for a little while. Now, the only thing powering it is the hydrogen generator. Currently, there is no limit to that, and we've run out, but just in time to get another wallop of hydrogen into the pipe. Now, at this point, what I would like to do is set up a automation wire between this battery and this. At this point, we want this to, the low threshold should be 5%, the high threshold 95%, and we'll just have that running as is. So where's the automation wire? Down here. There we go. We can just run that straight across. There's no particular problem with that. Now let's have a look. Another block of hydrogen on its way. We may want to be a little bit less aggressive with the amount of hydrogen that needs to be there. Since this can pull 500 grams a second, let's pop this down to 750. There we go. This will activate if there's still above the amount of hydrogen that this can pull, but with a little bit left besides. Let's have a watch now. We're seeing a lot more hydrogen being pushed through the system at this point. There we go. And right now this is overpressure, so we can't really get the oxygen out quite fast enough. But we're starting to back up all of the hydrogen. That's because this probably hasn't been finished. Unfortunate that. Please be finishing this quickly. We got enough refined materials? Yes, we do. Are you on the way there, Travis? Well done. Thank you very much. Let's get that finished. And there we go. That should power the system. And at this point, if we see this line eventually, or rather over time, get further and further backed up, then the system is working correctly, because in its main operation, it will continually back up the system. But we will see how much we can get going through this. We've got 2 electrolyzers providing all of the hydrogen right now. I mean, the battery's almost fully charged, so the hydrogen generator will shut down in a moment. Though, unfortunately, we're not pushing enough of the oxygen out right now. It looks like the hydrogen generator has been shut down. There we go. And we're starting to back it up. Now, at the moment, it's not a fair test because we're not shifting as much oxygen as we could. And so these are not turning on as often as they can. If we have a look at the power grid, we'll see that the potential load is 720, but it's 0 right now because none of the pumps can really vent their gases. If we have a look at the gas buildup, though, it's slowly accruing. It's not amazing, but it's getting there. We can perhaps help this out a little bit by having a little bit more oxygen venting, but honestly, I don't see too much reason to do that. At this point, we need to have a look around the rest of the base and decide where we want the oxygen to go. And it's pretty much going to be wherever I currently have an oxygen generator. Okay, as you can see, we've got some new bits and bobs in here. Let me go over them. Now, we've removed the oxidizer that we had built down here, oxygen diffuser rather, and we've changed the automation of it. Now, ignore the part at the top as I'll explain what's happening here. Now, you can't connect automation up to the vents. Unfortunately, you haven't got like mechanical vents that open or close, but we do have gas shutoff valves. Now, these little beauties do cost a little bit of power, 10 watts to run, but can be connected to the automation grid. So all we're doing is we're passing that signal to the gas shutoff valve. Now that gas shutoff valve controls the access of any oxygen into this vent. And we've got exactly the same thing going on up here. Now this sensor is a little bit further down. So if this one hasn't got oxygen here, it's going to send a signal. We're going to start bringing more in. If this one hasn't got any hydrogen at this level, it'll send a signal and allow hydrogen to flow through. And that does mean that we can end up with a chlorine level around here that I'm not particularly happy with. At this point, I don't think there's really polluted oxygen in here, so I'm not really sure we need the deodorizer. We could possibly get rid of that and have the gas element sensor here instead, which would encourage more and more oxygen to be pumped in. We'll see how that one runs, though. Now, I've not hooked up the hydrogen yet. That is a little bit further down the line, but I have hooked up all of the vents around the place. Now, that took me a little bit of time, which not super happy about, but oh well. Right, now then, it is finally time for us to hook all of this up. Now, ultimately, I want it to be running down there, and that's why I've got this pipe running all the way up, but for the sake of brevity, let's just go bump like that, and we will start seeing oxygen running through. And we're going to speed things along a little bit, just to see how all of this works. Now, at this point, we should start seeing oxygen filtering around the rest of the base. There we go. Now, the oxygen is going to be of a certain temperature, and that certain temperature is going to be reasonably warm, unfortunately. Right, if we have a look in the oxygen pipe itself, can we see gas pipe content is oxygen at about 30 degrees. Now, it's picking up heat in this whole area as it moves along its way. So the whole base is going to rise by about 5 degrees, or like 10 degrees in some places. Actually, no, that's more the water. The water it isn't really going to affect. But there we are. We are now pumping oxygen into the base. Now, obviously, this is going to be able to take quite a lot of oxygen, so we're going to be able to observe the system now running more or less full blast, because most of these filters are going to be running most of the time. This one, perhaps we could set up to have, we can tweak the amount, for example. If there's 500 grams of oxygen here, then there's almost certainly going to be more than 500 grams above it. So I'm going to set that to 500 grams here. So this is going to be running a lot of the time, whereas these two, sure, I'll leave those at 1,000. And we'll see how that goes for now. There's still a lot of oxygen to pull out of here. We're trying to shove 3 pumps worth of oxygen down a line that, reasonably speaking, can only take 2 pumps worth. A single line can at most take 1,000 grams, and each pump can pump out 500 grams at a time. So there's still going to be a bit of backup. But at this point, if this continues to back up, then odds are the system is largely self-powering. And we can see in here the oxygen has compressed quite a lot of the chlorine down into here, and where all the barmaids are very, very happy with that. Now, hooking up the hydrogen will be a problem. We can already see that the water level over here is dropping. That's just a thing that is happening. So we could at this point supplement it with a bit of water over there without too much worry that we're going to be wasting our potable water. But we are going to be burning through the polluted water rather quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. There we go. So there's no interruption. It will, again, use polluted water over regular water, over potable water. That could be sent elsewhere if we really want to. But I would like to hook up the hydrogen before we wrap things up here. We don't really need this anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to actually on a fairly high priority. Let's just get rid of that there. Now, ultimately, I want hydrogen to go to my my hydrogen pump first, my hydrogen generator rather, and we are stockpiling a large amount of hydrogen at this stage. So, with that in mind, I'm going to deconstruct this one pipe very briefly. It'll only take a little bit of time. Let me get that out of the way. This is going to puff a little bit of hydrogen into the air here, but that's fine. We want a gas bridge that will take that hydrogen down as a priority right about there. In fact, yeah, sure, let's just pop that in. And then if there is runoff, oh, wow, it actually went backwards. There we go, that's a bit better. If there is runoff, then this runoff can move down here and eventually connect up all the way down there. Now, this is going to push a lot of runoff down there, which is not ideal, but it will at least get our Dracos some hydrogen in here. Now, Dracos will then be able to grow their fibrous scales a lot faster. Eventually, we want more Draco farms. Glossy Dracos are absolutely a thing that we want. Not even want, we almost need. I mean, well, we've got oil over there, and that's one of the main components of plastic, so need, maybe not, but still I would prefer to go with oil, sorry, the plastic off the Dracos rather than having to faff around with oil, because that generates a lot of heat. Oh my lord. But yes, so I've been mentioning Atmos suits, and it's probably time for us to have a look at that. Now, the Atmos suits will be... Now, we could also go for the rails. Honestly, that would make a lot of things super good. And the metal refinery as well, if we want refined metals. But an Atmos suit dock is what I would rather right now. We've got the gas reservoir. I could perhaps just have a reservoir store up some hydrogen. That might be useful. Where's the liquid reservoir? Actually, you know what? We're going to go for the liquid reservoir first then, before we go for the Atmos suits. Simply because that liquid reservoir will make stockpiling large quantities of water or polluted water or any other liquid a little bit easier for us in the long run. But I think with that done, I'm fairly happy with the way the system is working. Once we've got all of these pipes built up, then we should see hydrogen moving into the Draco farm. Right now, this system is overloaded. We're starting to see some of the pumps get a little bit of breathing room, which is quite nice. Really? Come on now. Why have you got to be such scallywags about this? My lord. We should also start seeing oxygen starting to back up along certain pipelines, simply because there's not enough room for the oxygen. It's overpressure in the rest of the base. But if we have a look at how breathable the base is, looking good, looking fine. In fact, ooh, that's not so good though. We want to push that out of here if we can, as fast as we can. So maybe I should have another oxygen vent in here. Sure, we can do that. It's now rather easy for us to set up. We'll go ahead and we'll have an oxygen vent right about there, and just split off this line into that. And that should push things around for us. Colony achievement achieved. Let's have a look. We have got oxygen not included. Distribute 1,000 kilograms. Oxygen not included, I like it. Of oxygen using gas vents. There we go. Nice. Very nice indeed. And we're seeing some hydrogen moving through the vent. Now this is going to back up a lot of hydrogen. Way more than we want, but this will always get priority, and that's the main thing. So have a watch down here then. It's a little bit over pressure, but we're going to start pushing that hydrogen out. We've got a Drakelet egg, rather, being incubated as we stand. We've got 2 Drakelet eggs currently in the storage bin. Marvelous. And we've got all of the hatch eggs everywhere else. So that's going to be it for this episode. We've got oxygen up and running. We are currently powering it only this via the hydrogen, which means we've got an overflow of hydrogen. What we could do now is, with that overflow, actually send that to an independent hydrogen generator, which would then supplement the base power reserves. I think that might be a pretty smart idea. Perhaps have a little bridge over here sending any runoff to a reserve hydrogen generator, but at that point we will never get hydrogen down here, which would be quite sad, I feel. Now this is over pressure, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to shift that, unfortunately. There's a reasonable amount of hydrogen there, because this has requested so much oxygen in this room. It's actually very, very high pressure in here. So just as well that this is, in fact, over-pressurized, otherwise that might cause us some problems. But this should be pumping plenty of breathable oxygen in here, and then pushing the chlorine out across the rest of the base, which is not exactly what I wanted. Ideally, I'd like that to move down and mix into the carbon dioxide. Perhaps we need a carbon skimmer down here after all. That's something we can look into in the next episode, though. Glossy Dreckers will probably be one of the next things that we look to get. Hooking up the waste hydrogen into a hydrogen generator that will take our reliance off coal away would be also quite nice. Maybe doing something with this volcano, but I very much doubt it. And also, the final thing we're going to be working towards, getting over to exosuits. Once we can get exosuits, then we can send our duplicants out properly clothed into the reaches beyond the base proper, and that will be rather awesome. But I think that's enough for now. I really do hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and will be joining me for the next. But until next time, and as always, do take care, everyone.